A warm welcome to the Leader in You Deep Dive. We have another fantastic topic lined up for you today. Don't go anywhere. Let's learn.
Before the day takes hold, a silent whisper stirs a story waiting to unfold. You've carried burdens, doubts like shadows heavy on your mind, but a strength you've always harbored now is rising to define.
Okay, let's unpack something that probably feels pretty familiar to you. Have you ever poured your heart and soul, not to mention, significant resources, time, money, training programs, new initiatives into trying to improve something, maybe yourself, maybe your team, maybe your whole organization?
Oh, yeah.
And for a while, you see glimmers of hope, little wins, maybe even a big splash. But then, frustratingly, the old problems creep back in. The needle doesn't seem to move long term.
It's that paradox, isn't it? The investment is high, the effort is real, but the lasting results seem elusive. You see it in diets and workout plans, and absolutely in organizational change efforts. Why do those quick fixes, the superficial techniques, so often fail to create deep, sustainable change?
Exactly. And that question, that deep-seated frustration with the lack of lasting impact, is the very foundation of the incredible material we're diving into today. We're pulling insights from a comprehensive analysis of the work of Stephen R. Covey, focusing specifically on his groundbreaking ideas around principle-centered leadership.
Right. And our mission in this deep dive, it's really to move past the symptom chasing, the quick fix mentality, and understand the fundamental shift Covey proposes. He argues that true lasting success, whether personal or organizational, has to be built from a deep, unshakable core. It's an inside-out revolution.
An inside-out revolution. I like that.
Yeah, think of this deep dive as your shortcut, maybe, but not a shortcut around the work. More like a shortcut to understanding the why behind truly effective, sustainable growth.
And right at the top, Covey gives us this incredibly simple yet profound analogy that frames everything that follows: the law of the farm.
Ah, the farm. Yes. Imagine a farmer. It's harvest season, and he suddenly realizes he wants a massive yield. Can he go out there and frantically plant, water, fertilize, and cultivate his fields all in 1 week?
No way! Nature doesn't work like that, because you can't.
Precisely. Growth. Real growth takes time. It requires diligent preparation, patient sowing, consistent watering, and care, all governed by unchanging natural laws. You can't cram for a harvest. There are no shortcuts to growing a healthy crop.
And Covey's core argument is that the same natural laws apply to human effectiveness, to leadership, to builder relationships, and to healthy organizations. You can't cram for character. You can't cram for trust. You can't cram for a thriving culture.
You have to work according to the principles, those universal natural laws. It requires patient, diligent cultivation day after day, like tending that farm.
So how do we cultivate that? Over the next little while, we're going to deconstruct this. We'll start with Covey's core thesis, what he believes is fundamentally wrong with how many of us approach success. Then we'll look inside what makes a principle-centered leader tick, their inner anatomy, those stable dimensions.
Right, the internal stuff.
From there, we'll explore the 8 observable characteristics that flow from that core and get really practical. We'll look at an application playbook with specific, actionable steps you can take for yourself and with your team, complete with real-world mini-stories.
Yeah, make it concrete.
Then we'll zoom out to some larger case studies, organizations that have built success on these very ideas.
See it in action.
Finally, we'll synthesize it all into a clear, unified framework that shows how these principles ripple outwards through every level of your life and work.
It's a journey from the inside out, it really is.
Let's start there at the core thesis. Covey points a sharp finger at what he sees as the prevailing approach to success in modern society, particularly since, the Industrial Revolution. He calls it the personality ethic.
Yes, this is his foundational critique. He observed a significant shift over the last century or so, away from a focus on character and towards what he terms the personality ethic.
And what does that actually mean? What does the personality ethic emphasize?
It's an approach centered on outward appearance, public image, social skills, communication techniques, positive mental attitude, and making favorable impressions on others. It's fundamentally an outside-in approach focusing on manipulating external factors, including how you present yourself and how you interact with others to achieve desired results.
So mastering presentation skills, charming people, networking effectively, putting on a confident face, even if maybe you don't feel it inside.
Exactly. Think about the focus in a lot of popular self-help or business literature over the years. Quick tips, communication hacks, influence techniques, motivational slogans. While some of these skills can be genuinely helpful, Covey's powerful critique is that when they are the primary focus, when they are rooted in something deeper, they're ultimately superficial.
And why is that superficiality a problem? What's the danger?
Well, for one, it can feel inauthentic, even deceptive to others, and crucially, it lacks resilience. When things get tough, when you face genuine adversity, ethical dilemmas, or complex uncertainty, that polished facade built purely on techniques tends to crumble if there isn't a strong foundation of character underneath.
Right, it's like building a beautiful, impressive skyscraper, but realizing it has no basement, no deep foundation holding it up when the winds really start to blow.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And Covey contrasts this sharply with what he calls the character ethic. He argues this was the dominant foundation for understanding success for millennia, going back through history, philosophy, religious texts, you name it.
The character ethic being, what's that about?
It's an approach built on universal, timeless principles. Things like integrity, humility, fidelity, fairness, justice, honesty, human dignity, service, patience, diligence. These aren't just nice ideas. Covey argues they are fundamental natural laws for human effectiveness. Just like gravity is a natural law for the physical world, you can't really argue with them.
And the core idea here is the opposite of the personality ethic.
Precisely. It's an inside-out approach. True, lasting effectiveness, influence, and success flow from who you are at your core, your character. Covey has that powerful line, "What we are communicates far more powerfully than anything we say or do." Your being, your character, is your most potent form of communication.
That makes so much sense. You've probably felt that intuitively when you meet someone. You can kind of sense the integrity or maybe the lack of it underneath the polish.
Absolutely. It's that feeling that their words and their actions are deeply congruent with something solid inside them. Or maybe they're not.
And you mentioned Covey connects this historical shift to management paradigms. How did the Industrial Revolution favor the personality ethic?
Well, the Industrial Revolution's focus was really on efficiency, predictability, and control in mass production. Scientific management, which emerged from this era, often treated people more like, interchangeable parts or resources to be managed and controlled. The focus was on standardizing behavior and using external motivators. So the personality ethic, with its emphasis on observable behavior, techniques, and compliance, it fit neatly into this control-oriented, outside-in model of organizing people.
Okay, so treat people like components, focus on how they act and what techniques you use to manage them, get the behavior you want.
Right. But now, think about the economy we live in today, the knowledge worker economy. Value comes from creativity, innovation, collaboration, complex problem solving, adapting to rapid change. You can't control creativity or mandate innovation through techniques and external measures alone. It just doesn't work.
No, you need people who are engaged, who take initiative, who can think for themselves, who feel trusted.
Which requires a fundamentally different foundation. Trust. You need trust to empower people, to collaborate effectively, to navigate ambiguity together. And trust isn't built through techniques. It's built through trustworthiness, through character.
So shifting to the character ethic isn't just a nice moral choice. It's actually a strategic necessity for any organization hoping to thrive in the complexity and speed of the 21st century. You need people operating from an internal compass.
It's absolutely foundational. Foundational for unlocking the potential of modern teams and individuals. And this ties directly into another cornerstone concept, the inside-out doctrine.
Which is exactly what it sounds like. Change starts within, yourself first.
Yes, Covey is unwavering on this. Effective leadership, whether of yourself, your family, or an organization, must begin with personal transformation. You have to develop your own character, achieve self-mastery, and become truly trustworthy yourself before you can effectively lead others. You earn the right.
He has that blunt quote that really drives this home. What was it again?
You cannot talk your way out of problems you behaved yourself into. It's so direct, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
No amount of clever communication or smooth talking can fix issues that stem from a lack of integrity, broken promises, or poor habits. The problem isn't your communication technique, it's your behavior, your character. Fix the root cause.
And you see this structure laid out perfectly in the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Absolutely. The first 3 habits, be proactive, begin with the end in mind, and put first things first, are all focused inward. They are about self-awareness, personal vision, values, and self-discipline. Covey calls this the private victory, achieving independence and self-mastery. It's your personal foundation.
And only after you've won that internal battle, the private victory.
Can you effectively move on to the public victory? The next 3 habits focused on interdependence and relationships. Think win-win. Seek first to understand, then synergize. The foundation of effective interpersonal relationships, the ability to build trust with others, relies entirely on your own personal trustworthiness, built in the private victory. Your ability to influence others stems from your integrity, not your technique.
So, trying to apply the public victory habits, collaboration, win-win communication without that private victory foundation is like trying to build trust without being trustworthy. It just feels hollow, doesn't it?
Exactly. It might work in the short term to manipulation or charisma, maybe, but it won't create deep, lasting trust or genuine synergy. The foundation of any relationship is truly the character of the individuals involved.
Okay. And what do we anchor that character to? This is where the distinction between principles and values becomes absolutely crucial, right?
Oh, it's one of the most misunderstood yet vital distinctions Covey makes. People often use principles and values interchangeably, but they serve very different purposes. Principles, as we touched on, are universal, timeless, self-evident natural laws. Think fairness, integrity, service, quality, growth, contribution. They exist and operate regardless of whether we believe in them or not.
Yeah.
They are objective realities, like the principle of gravity. They are the territory itself.
Okay, the fundamental, unchanging reality of cause and effect in human systems. The laws of the universe, almost.
Right. Values, on the other hand, are subjective internal beliefs. They're the things we personally or collectively decide are important. Values are incredibly important for motivation, for setting goals, for deciding what to prioritize. But their effectiveness, their ability to lead to positive outcomes, depends entirely on whether they are aligned with correct principles.
And I think the source gives a pretty stark example of values that are not aligned with principles.
Yes. Covey points out that even organizations we would consider deeply destructive, like criminal syndicates, have shared values. They value loyalty within the group, obedience, ruthlessness towards outsiders, secrecy. These are strong values that motivate their members.
But they are clearly not built on principles like fairness, justice, or human dignity. Not at all.
Exactly. And because their values are fundamentally misaligned with these universal principles, they are inherently unstable, self-destructive, and their outward success is always temporary and built on causing harm. That misalignment, that building against the grain of natural law, ultimately leads to their downfall every time.
Wow. That example makes the distinction crystal clear. Values are what you believe. Principles are what works based on reality.
Which brings us back to that brilliant analogy, the compass versus the map.
Values are the map, principles are the compass. Explain that one.
Okay, so a map is a description of the territory at a specific point in time. It represents what was known, the established routes, the rules that applied then. If the environment is stable and predictable, like navigating a well-mapped city, a detailed map, or maybe a comprehensive rule book, a rigid set of procedures in an organization is incredibly useful. It tells everyone exactly what to do and how to get there efficiently.
Right. But what happens when the territory changes rapidly? Which it does, constantly now. When the roads disappear, new obstacles emerge, or the destination itself shifts slightly.
That map quickly becomes obsolete. Trying to navigate a dynamic, unpredictable environment using an outdated map is frustrating and, frankly, dangerous. Principles, however, are the compass. They represent true north. The terrain can change drastically. You might be in a dense forest, crossing a river, climbing a mountain, but the compass still reliably points towards that ultimate direction. It doesn't tell you how to cross the river, but it tells you which direction you need to go.
So, in organizations, managing by detailed rules and practices, the map can work in stable periods, maybe, but it centralizes decision-making. The map makers know best, makes people rigid, and stifles creativity when faced with unforeseen challenges. People just follow the old map, even if it's leading them off a cliff.
Exactly. It tells people what to do. Leading by principles, the compass, is fundamentally different. It empowers people with the why. When everyone understands the core principles like prioritize customer needs, ensure quality in every step, act with integrity, they have a reliable internal compass. They can use their own judgment, creativity, and initiative to figure out the best way to navigate novel situations, even if there's no map for it.
They can improvise, adapt, and solve problems because they know the ultimate direction they need to go. They have the why.
It fosters flexibility, shared responsibility, and unlocks a tremendous amount of potential that would otherwise be constrained by a rigid adherence to outdated maps. It allows for dynamic, principle action in complex environments.
Okay, so principles are the objective true north. Anchoring your life and leadership to them is the goal. What does that actually do for you internally? How does centering your life on principles change your inner world, your capacity as a leader?
Yeah, this is key. Covey argues that centering your life on timeless principles develops and strengthens 4 crucial internal dimensions. These dimensions provide a stable, unshakable inner core, regardless of external circumstances. This is the fundamental difference between a principle-centered person and someone whose life is centered on external factors, things like their job, their spouse, money, possessions, or public approval.
And the problem with external centers is they are inherently unstable, right? They can be taken away, they change.
Precisely. If your sense of worth is tied to your job title and you lose your job, your identity is shattered. If your security comes from your bank account, a financial crisis can be devastating. But principles, they are unchanging. So let's break down these 4 dimensions that principles anchor.
Okay, the first is security. What does that mean here?
Security is your sense of worth, your identity, your emotional anchorage, your self-esteem. A principle-centered leader derives this sense of security from within, knowing their worth is tied to their character and adherence to universal principles, not to external validation or possessions.
So they are intrinsically confident, proactive, not easily rattled by criticism, not threatened by change or other success. They have a solid core.
Absolutely. They have a stable internal reference point. Contrast that with someone centered on external approval. Their security is volatile, it's dependent on what others think, their social media likes, or their latest performance review. This leads to insecurity, defensiveness, constant approval-seeking, reactivity. They spend so much energy just protecting their fragile external center.
That paints a very clear picture. The second dimension is guidance.
Guidance is your source of direction, your internal compass, your conscience. For the principle-centered leader, this direction comes from consistently consulting timeless principles. Decisions are guided by fairness, integrity, long-term consequences, and contribution, rather than expediency or popularity. It's about doing the right thing.
And someone centered externally, where does their guidance come from?
Well, their guidance system gets warped. Decisions are driven by what will protect their job, make them more money, or keep them popular in the short term. This leads to choices based on fear, greed, or political maneuvering, often sacrificing long-term effectiveness for immediate gain. You see it all the time.
Okay, so inner stability, security, allows for a clear, reliable moral compass, guidance. What does that combination lead to?
To the third dimension, wisdom. Wisdom is your perspective, your sense of balance, your judgment, your ability to see the bigger picture and understand how different things relate. A principle-centered leader gains wisdom from the combination of stable security and clear guidance. They can see holistically, understand cause and effect, and foresee long-term consequences.
Because they aren't blinded by the need to protect a fragile external center. They can see more clearly.
Exactly. An externally centered person's perspective is often narrow, limited to whatever threatens or benefits their chosen center. They lack perspective, struggle with good judgment, and focus only on immediate, often superficial, threats or rewards.
And finally, the fourth dimension, power.
Power is your capacity to act, the courage to make choices, the energy to accomplish things. For the principle-centered leader, this power comes from that strong inner core, from internalized principles and from self-mastery, that private victory we talked about. They have the inner strength to be proactive, to take initiative, to make and keep commitments, to act decisively even when it's difficult.
They have agency they can make things happen.
Unlike the externally centered person, whose power is often derivative dependent on their formal position, their title, their wealth, or their ability to manipulate others, they become reactive, unable to act without external validation or permission, hesitant to take risks.
And you mentioned these are deeply interdependent, like a causal chain.
Yes, think of it this way. Stable security and clear guidance are the bedrock. They enable you to gain true wisdom, that balanced, long-term perspective. And it's that wisdom that then informs, releases, and directs your power, your capacity to act effectively in the world. So security plus guidance leads to wisdom, which leads to power.
So if my security is unstable, say it's tied to my job, my guidance gets twisted. What do I need to do to keep my job? My wisdom is impaired. I can't see the situation clearly or the long-term impact, and therefore my power to actually solve the real problem is crippled.
Precisely. You become paralyzed by fear, or you act in ways that protect the job but maybe harm the organization or your relationships in the long run. The whole chain breaks down. Understanding these 4 dimensions makes it clear why centering your life on principles isn't just a feel-good idea, it's the source of profound inner strength and capability.
You can practically diagnose ineffective leadership by looking at which of these dimensions seems weak due to an external center. It's like a diagnostic tool.
It provides a really powerful lens. And from this stable, principle-centered inner core, Covey identifies 8 observable characteristics. These are not personality traits you're born with or techniques you apply. They are the natural outward results of cultivating that inner strength and operating from principles. They are the signs of progress.
Right, the behaviors that flow from the being. What are these 8 observable characteristics of a principle-centered leader?
Okay, they are. They are continually learning.
Okay.
They are service-oriented. They radiate positive energy. They believe in other people. They lead balanced lives. They see life as an adventure. They are synergistic. And they exercise for self-renewal.
That's quite a list. Let's just quickly define each one before we get practical. Continually learning, what's that look like?
It's a constant desire and discipline for growth, reading broadly, seeking feedback, asking questions, being educated by their experiences, both the good and the bad, always curious.
Okay. Service-oriented.
Seeing life and their role in it as a mission to contribute to others, to causes, to something larger than their own self-interest. Making a difference.
Radiate positive energy.
Having an inner optimism and cheerfulness, not based on ignoring reality, but on that stable inner core and a belief in principles. They uplift others, they don't drain them.
Believe in other people.
Seeing the inherent worth and potential in everyone, separating behavior from identity, having faith in others' capacity to grow and contribute. Seeing the good.
Lead balanced lives.
Avoiding the extremism of focusing on only one area, like work, at the expense of others. Family, health, community, personal growth. Making time for the essential dimensions of life. Whole life balance.
See life as an adventure.
Because their security isn't tied to predictability, they can embrace uncertainty, see challenges as opportunities, and approach the unknown with curiosity and excitement rather than fear.
Synergistic. That's a Covey word.
It is. Being a catalyst for creative cooperation, valuing differences, bringing people together to find solutions that are genuinely better than anyone could come up with alone. That 1 + 1 = 13 idea.
Okay.
And finally, exercise for self-renewal. The discipline of regularly investing in their physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Covey calls this sharpening the saw, the habit that makes all the other habits possible.
These 8 characteristics really bring the abstract idea of principle-centered to life. They are what you actually see in people who are living this way, more tangible.
They are the outward manifestation of that inner strength and direction.
Yeah. Okay, so we understand the core idea, character ethic, the foundation, principles, the inner anatomy, 4 dimensions, and the outward signs, 8 characteristics. Now, the big question, how do you actually cultivate these? How do you move from understanding the concepts to embodying them? That's where the application playbook comes in.
Exactly. This is the how. This section provides actionable steps for individuals and leaders to develop each of the 8 characteristics we just discussed. It's about turning principles into practice, not just theory. Getting practical.
Let's dig into each one, starting with number 1. Cultivating continuous learning. We said this is about constant growth and seeking knowledge. How do we actually do that?
Well, for you as an individual, making learning a non-negotiable part of your life requires intentionality. It doesn't just happen. One crucial step is to schedule learning time. Literally block time in your calendar each week, whether it's 30 minutes or several hours, dedicated specifically to reading, watching educational videos, listening to podcasts like this one, or taking a course. It needs to be treated with the same respect as a client meeting or a project deadline. If it's not scheduled, life will squeeze it out.
Oh, yeah. It's easy to let learning be something you do only when a specific problem arises. Or, when I have time, which is never.
Exactly. Another key practice is to become an active listener. It's a powerful way to learn from others. It means listening with the genuine intent to understand their perspective, their feelings, their needs, before you even begin to think about how you'll respond or what you want to say. Pay attention not just to the words, but the tone, the body language. Ask clarifying questions to ensure you've truly grasped their meaning. This isn't passive hearing, it's active seeking to comprehend.
That shifts the dynamic from just waiting to speak to genuinely trying to connect and learn from the other person. Big shift.
It fundamentally changes the quality of your interactions and the information you gain. It's huge. Finally, build self-mastery through promises. Start small. Make a promise to yourself that is within your control, like I will walk for 15 minutes every morning, or I will read 1 chapter of a book today, and then keep that promise consistently. This builds your internal discipline, your capacity to set a goal and follow through. That self-control is foundational for tackling larger, more complex learning goals. It's like the gym for your integrity muscle.
Building that inner capacity for discipline, starting small. Okay. How does a leader foster continuous learning within a team? What's their role?
For leaders, it really starts with creating the right environment. The most critical step is to foster psychological safety. If team members don't feel safe admitting mistakes, asking questions that might reveal gaps in their knowledge, or challenging the status quo, learning just shuts down. People clam up. Leaders must explicitly create an environment where vulnerability is okay, where curiosity is rewarded, and where mistakes are treated as learning opportunities, not reasons for blame or punishment.
That's the bedrock, isn't it? If people are scared, they won't learn or share what they know. They'll hide things.
Right. Then, implement learning rituals. This could be something formal, like a weekly lunch and learn, where team members share expertise, or even just starting team meetings with a quick, "What did you learn this week?" round robin. Make learning a visible, valued, shared activity.
Embedding it in the team's routine, making it normal.
Yes. And importantly, conduct after-action reviews. After projects, major initiatives, or even significant challenges, gather the team for a blameless review. The focus is strictly on what happened, why, what did we learn, what will we do differently next time? And analyze successes just as thoroughly as failures to understand contributing factors. Learn from both.
The source gives a vignette here about a project manager facing a pretty common problem.
Yes, this manager realized her team was hesitant to bring up issues or admit when they were stuck, likely out of fear of sounding incompetent or getting blamed. Classic scenario. Instead of just demanding more reporting or getting frustrated, she instituted a simple ritual. At the beginning of their weekly team meeting, everyone had to share one thing I learned this week.
Such a simple reframing, not what went wrong, but what did you learn?
Exactly. The learnings could come from anywhere. A success, a failure, a conversation, a book. By framing it around learning, she made it safe to talk about what didn't go perfectly because it was framed as gaining knowledge, not making a mistake. This small ritual fundamentally shifted the team dynamic, encouraging openness and much earlier problem solving.
That is powerful evidence that small, consistent actions rooted in a principle, like learning, can really change a culture.
Okay, let's move to the second characteristic. Adopting a service-oriented mission. This is about seeing life as contribution, right?
Exactly. For you as an individual, it's about shifting your perspective from purely self-interest to contribution. A core practice is to reframe your role. Take your job description, your title, whatever defines your current activities, and rewrite it as a personal mission statement focused on who you serve and what contribution you make. See your work not just as tasks to be completed for a paycheck, but as a means to serve others and make a positive impact. Find the meaning.
That elevates the work, doesn't it? From just a chore to potentially a calling. It fundamentally changes your motivation. Another practice is to practice the yoke-up visualization. Each morning, take a moment to visualize putting on a yoke or harness of service. Consciously think about the people you will interact with throughout the day, colleagues, customers, family, community members, and make a deliberate mental commitment to being present for them and serving their needs. Set the intention.
A conscious decision to approach the day with a mindset of contribution, not just reactively.
Yes. And finally, perform anonymous service. Do something helpful for someone, a colleague, a stranger, a family member, without telling anyone and without seeking any recognition or reward. This strengthens your intrinsic motivation to serve. You do it because it's the right thing to do, not for external validation.
Taking the ego out of service. Nice. How do leaders foster this orientation in a team?
Leaders play a crucial role in connecting the team's work to a larger purpose. They must define a transcendent purpose. Help the team articulate a mission statement that goes beyond just financial goals. How does the work they do make a difference? How does it improve lives, solve problems, or contribute to society? It needs to be a why that resonates deeply.
Giving them something meaningful to connect to beyond the tasks.
Absolutely. Then, connect work to impact. Regularly share stories, testimonials, or even direct feedback from customers or beneficiaries of the team's work. Let the team see and hear the tangible impact of their efforts on real people. This makes the work feel meaningful and fuels a service mindset.
Closing that gap between the work itself and the person it ultimately helps.
Yes. And lastly, serve each other. The leader must model serving the team's needs, asking, "How can I support you?" and following through. Encourage team members to proactively help and support one another. A culture of internal service reinforces the broader service mission. It starts inside.
The vignette here sounds very relatable for anyone who feels disconnected from the end user of their work.
It is. A software development team was focused purely on writing code specifications, feeling detached and unmotivated because they never saw the people using the software. They were just coding. The manager didn't give a lecture or a motivational speech. Instead, he arranged for the team to spend a day embedded with the customer support team.
Oh, listening to live customer calls, that must have been revealing, eye-opening.
Profoundly so.
Yeah.
Hearing directly about users' frustrations, their challenges, and how the software impacted their daily work, both positively and negatively, gave the developers an immediate, visceral connection to the people they were serving. It wasn't just abstract code anymore. It was about solving real human problems. It reignited their passion for quality and their sense of purpose. Huge impact.
That's such a concrete example of linking the work back to the principle of service. Okay, characteristic number 3. Projecting and managing positive energy. This isn't about forced smiles or fake positivity, right? It's about a stable inner optimism.
Exactly. It's about cultivating an inner disposition rooted in principles, which allows you to be a source of positive energy, regardless of external challenges. It comes from the inside. For individuals, a key practice is to practice daily gratitude. Take a few minutes each day to identify and appreciate things you are genuinely grateful for, no matter how small. This actively trains your brain to focus on the positive aspects of your reality, building that inner reservoir of optimism.
It's simple but powerful because you're consciously directing your focus. What you focus on expands.
Exactly. Another is to be an energy observer. Become mindful of your own emotional state and how it impacts the people around you. Notice how your stress, negativity, or enthusiasm can be contagious. Also, observe the energy dynamics in a room, how one person's negativity can drain the group, or how another's positive outlook can lift everyone. This awareness gives you a choice in how you contribute to the environment.
You become aware of the energy you're emitting and the energy you're absorbing.
Yes. And crucially, choose your response to negativity. When faced with criticism, conflict, or a toxic environment, you have agency. You have a choice. Can you choose to act as a peacemaker by staying calm, listening, and attempting to neutralize the negative energy? Or, if the situation is truly unhealthy and not amenable to change, is it wiser to sidestep and remove yourself to protect your own energy and integrity? Your power lies in your response, not in controlling the external negativity.
That's key. You can't control others, but you control yourself and your reaction. How do leaders cultivate positive energy in a team?
Leaders really set the tone. They need to celebrate small wins. Start meetings, emails, or check-ins by acknowledging recent successes, team member contributions, or positive feedback. This creates positive momentum and reminds the team of progress and value, builds energy.
Counteracting the tendency to focus only on problems and what's wrong.
Right, it builds morale. Also, establish a no-gossip rule. Make it clear that talking negatively about people, engaging in rumors, or making personal attacks is unacceptable behavior that drains energy and erodes trust. It's toxic. Leaders must model respectful communication and shut down gossip immediately, redirecting the conversation constructively. Set that standard.
Setting clear boundaries around those really draining behaviors.
Yes, and fundamentally build a culture of appreciation. Make genuine recognition and appreciation a regular practice. Encourage peer-to-peer shout-outs. Use formal or informal platforms for praise, and ensure leaders frequently acknowledge individual and team contributions publicly and privately. Feeling valued is a huge source of positive energy. People thrive on it.
The vignette features a classic high-pressure situation, doesn't it?
Yeah, a team was working on a complex project under tight deadlines, and the stress was palpable. Negative comments, complaints, general pessimism were starting to take over, dragging everyone down. The leader recognized this energy drain. Instead of just telling everyone to be positive, which rarely works, he implemented a simple ritual at the start of their daily 15-minute stand-up meeting.
What did he do?
Each team member had to share one win from the previous day, something they accomplished, learned, or saw go well, and one thing they genuinely appreciated about a teammate's contribution. Just those two things.
Shifting the focus immediately to gratitude and connection right at the start of the day.
Exactly. It took only a few minutes, but it dramatically changed the atmosphere. By forcing everyone to look for the positive and acknowledge each other, the complaining lessened, and the team became more focused on collaborative problem solving. They weren't ignoring the pressure, but they were facing it with a different, more positive energy.
Small ritual, big impact on morale and focus. Okay, characteristic number 4. Fostering belief in others to unleash potential. This feels like the heart of empowering leadership, really core.
It is. It's rooted in the principle of human dignity, seeing the inherent worth and potential in every person, regardless of their current performance or circumstances. It's a fundamental belief. For individuals, a crucial skill is to listen empathetically. When interacting with others, especially when there are challenges or disagreements, give them your full attention. Seek to understand their perspective, their feelings, their underlying needs, without interrupting or preparing your rebuttal. Listen to truly grasp where they're coming from first.
Putting yourself in their shoes to understand, not just to judge or win the argument.
Yes. Another key practice is to separate the person from the behavior. When addressing performance issues or giving feedback, focus specifically on the behavior or action that needs to change. Avoid labeling the person or attacking their character. Always start by affirming their worth and your belief in their potential, then discuss the specific behavior and its impact. This allows them to receive feedback without feeling personally attacked or defensive.
It preserves their dignity and it opens them up to learning instead of shutting down.
Exactly. And actively look for unseen potential. Make it a habit to look beyond people's current roles or visible skills. What are their hidden talents? What could they be capable of with the right support and opportunity? And verbalize your belief in their potential. I see a real talent in you for X, or I think you could really grow into doing Y. This explicit belief can be incredibly motivating for people.
You help them see what they might not see in themselves yet. How do leaders foster this belief in a team setting?
Well, leaders demonstrate belief through their actions, especially by how they delegate and respond to challenges. They delegate authority, not just tasks. True empowerment means giving people ownership of an outcome and trusting them to figure out the how, not just giving them a checklist of what to do. This shows you believe in their judgment and capability.
Giving them the goal and letting them drive. Trusting them.
Yes. And crucially, make failure a learning opportunity. When a team member takes a smart, calculated risk that doesn't pan out, the leader's immediate response should be focused on learning. Okay, what do we learn from this? Not whose fault is this? This creates a safe-to-fail environment where people feel safe stretching themselves and taking initiative, knowing that failure, if handled well, isn't a career ender.
It encourages thoughtful risk-taking, which is absolutely necessary for innovation.
Right. And finally, provide resources and coaching. Belief isn't just passive optimism, it's active investment. Provide the training, tools, information, and support people need to succeed. Set clear expectations, and then act as a coach guiding, asking questions, removing obstacles, rather than a micromanager directing every single step. This active support demonstrates your commitment to their growth.
The vignette here beautifully illustrates the power of delegating with belief.
It involves a manager and a junior analyst. The manager had a high-stakes, complex project that needed someone capable and trusted. Instead of giving it to a senior person, he assigned it to a junior analyst who hadn't handled something quite like this before. But he didn't just dump it. He said something like, look, I'm giving you this project because I've seen your potential, and I genuinely believe you have what it takes to knock this out of the park. My door's always open if you need to brainstorm or hit a roadblock, but I trust you to lead this and figure it out.
Wow. That explicit statement of belief and trust must have been incredibly powerful for that analyst, probably changed their whole perspective.
It absolutely was. Feeling that genuine trust and being given that level of autonomy, the analyst was duly motivated. They worked diligently, sought help when needed, but drove it forward and ultimately delivered exceptional results that exceeded expectations. The manager's belief didn't just empower the analyst, it helped the analyst tap into their own potential and rise to the occasion.
Belief, when it's genuine and backed by support, truly can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Amazing. Okay, characteristic 5. Engineering a balanced and fulfilling life.
This is crucial because leadership, and life really, demands energy and sustainability. It's about avoiding the extremism of focusing solely on work and recognizing that effectiveness comes from renewing all dimensions of your life. You can't pour from an empty cup. For individuals, a key step is to identify your core roles. Think about your most important identities and responsibilities: professional, spouse, parent, community member, friend, learner, individual, etc. Consciously define these roles.
Seeing yourself not just as your job title, but as a whole person with different facets.
Exactly. And then for each role, think about what effectiveness and contribution look like. This helps you avoid neglecting crucial areas just because work feels urgent. Next, master the time management matrix. This is Covey's classic tool for prioritizing. Focus on quadrant 2 activities, things that are important but not yet urgent. This includes planning, relationship building, personal renewal, proactive problem prevention. Investing time here prevents crises. Urgent important, quadrant 1.
Spending time on prevention and preparation rather than constantly being in crisis mode, fighting fires.
Yes, quadrant 2 is where proactive leadership and living happens. To make time for quadrant 2, you absolutely must learn to say no gracefully. If you don't protect your time and priorities, others will fill them for you, usually with their emergencies. Saying yes to the important quadrant 2 activities often requires saying no or not now to less important requests, even if they are presented with urgency by others.
Having that bigger yes, your core roles and priorities, makes it easier to say no to things that don't align, gives you clarity. How do leaders foster balance within a team? Because team culture can often push against balance.
Yeah, leaders are incredibly powerful role models here. Leaders must model balance. If the leader is sending emails at midnight, working every weekend, and never taking vacation, they are implicitly telling the team that this is the expected norm, regardless of what they say about work-life balance. Leaders need to visibly set boundaries, leave at a reasonable hour, take their vacation, and talk about their own efforts to maintain balance. Walk the talk.
Your behavior speaks volumes louder than your words, especially as a leader.
Absolutely. Where possible, implement flexible work policies. Offering flexibility in terms of working hours or location can help team members better integrate their work and personal lives, reducing stress and improving overall well-being. Trusting people to manage their time.
Giving people agency over their schedules where the work allows.
Yes. And finally, conduct well-being check-ins. In your regular one-on-one meetings, genuinely ask team members about their workload, stress levels, and whether they feel they have enough time for personal renewal. Don't just talk about tasks. Be prepared to help them prioritize, delegate tasks, or adjust expectations if they are struggling with burnout. This shows you value them as people, not just as producers.
The vignette illustrates how a leader directly intervened to address potential burnout proactively.
Yeah, a director noticed her team was exhausted, working long hours, and productivity was actually starting to dip because of stress and fatigue. She recognized this wasn't sustainable or effective. She didn't just crack the whip harder, she gave them time and permission.
How did she do that?
She mandated a no weekend work rule for the next month, emphasizing that she wanted them to rest and recharge. She also instituted a recharge hour from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. each day where no internal meetings were allowed, encouraging people to use that time for lunch, a walk, or simply quiet, focused work.
Giving them back time and control explicitly.
The team was initially skeptical, worrying about hitting deadlines with less perceived time. But after just a couple of weeks, they reported feeling more refreshed, more focused, and surprisingly, productivity actually increased. The renewed energy led to higher quality work and more efficient use of their time. It proved that rest isn't a luxury, it's essential for sustainable performance.
That really reinforces the sharpen the saw idea, doesn't it? Okay, number 6, embracing life as an adventure.
This characteristic flows directly from that stable inner security we discussed earlier. When your sense of self isn't dependent on external predictability, you are free to approach the unknown with curiosity and excitement rather than fear. For individuals, the key is to reframe challenges. When faced with something unexpected, a setback, or a difficult situation, consciously choose to view it not as a threat or a catastrophe, but as an adventure, maybe a puzzle to solve or an opportunity to learn. This simple mental shift changes your emotional response.
It moves you from a defensive posture to an engaged, curious one. Changes the whole feeling.
Exactly. Another practice is to embrace discomfort. Intentionally seek out experiences that push you slightly outside your comfort zone, whether it's trying a new skill, speaking up at a meeting, or traveling somewhere unfamiliar. Doing this in small, controlled ways builds your resilience and strengthens your capacity to handle bigger, unexpected challenges later. It's like building your adventure muscle.
You train yourself to be okay with the unknown, little by little.
Yes, and constantly anchoring your principles. When faced with uncertainty or risk, remind yourself that your core identity and security are tied to your principles. Your integrity, your commitment to service, your capacity to learn. This internal anchor frees you from needing external conditions to feel safe, allowing you to approach the situation with courage and curiosity.
Your internal compass guides you through the fog, even when the map is useless. How do leaders foster this adventurous mindset in a team?
Well, leaders can create an environment where experimentation is encouraged, even celebrated. They must create a safe-to-fail environment by making it clear that exploring new ideas and taking calculated risks is valued. When experiments don't work out, focus on the learning gained, not on assigning blame. This psychological safety is essential for people to dare to venture into the unknown.
Giving permission to try new things, knowing it won't always work out perfectly.
Yes. Also, use adventure-based team building. Activities like escape rooms, complex problem-solving simulations, or outdoor challenges can help teams build trust, practice communication under pressure, and develop collaborative problem-solving skills in a fun, engaging way that mimics the challenges of an adventure.
Bringing the spirit of adventure into team development itself.
Exactly. And lastly, launch pilot programs. Frame risky or untested new ideas as small, contained pilots or experiments rather than massive, all-or-nothing initiatives. This lowers the perceived risk for the team and encourages them to explore innovative solutions with an adventurous mindset. Small bets.
The vignette here involves a marketing team tasked with a difficult launch. Sounds stressful.
Yes, they had to launch a new product into a highly competitive, unpredictable market. It felt daunting, risky, maybe even scary for them. The marketing leader recognized this and decided to frame the entire project not as a stressful task, but as an expedition.
An expedition, I love that.
Yeah. They created a visual mission map for their war room, identified potential obstacles and risks as dragons or uncharted territory, and even formed cross-functional sub-teams as fellowships with specific roles.
That's brilliant, gamifying the challenge and turning it into a quest.
Precisely. This playful, adventurous framing completely changed the team's energy. It made the daunting task feel engaging, less intimidating, and spurred immense creativity and collaboration. They approached setbacks with problem-solving curiosity rather than despair because they were on an expedition together. It was a powerful demonstration of how mindset shapes reality.
That's fantastic. It makes the struggle part of the fun part of the story, not just drudgery. Okay, characteristic 7. Mastering synergy, creating that 1 + 1 = 3 outcome.
Yeah, synergy is all about valuing differences and creatively collaborating to find solutions that are superior to anything any single person could have come up with alone. It's about the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. For individuals, the starting point is crucial. Value differences. When someone has a different opinion, a different perspective, or comes from a different background, your first reaction should be curiosity, not dismissal or defensiveness. See their difference as a potential asset, a gift. Ask questions like, that's an interesting way to look at it. Tell me more about how you arrived at that viewpoint. Seek to understand.
Approaching disagreement with curiosity, not immediate conflict or judgment.
Yes. This immediately opens the door to learning and collaboration. And this is where practice habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood, becomes absolutely critical. Make a sincere, empathic effort to understand the other person's position so deeply, their logic, their feelings, their underlying needs, that you could even articulate it for them better than they could themselves before you present your own point of view. This builds trust and ensures you're solving the right problem together.
Understanding before being understood, that's the foundation of synergy, isn't it?
Right. And then seek the third alternative. When you're in a disagreement or facing a complex problem with different proposed solutions, approach it with the mindset that there's likely a third, better alternative that hasn't been thought of yet. One that incorporates the best elements of everyone's ideas and transcends the original proposals. This shifts the dynamic from adversarial, my way or your way, to creative, what's our way, the best way.
It's not compromise, where everyone gives something up and maybe nobody's happy. It's synergy, where you create something new and better together.
Exactly. How do leaders foster synergy in a team? Leaders need to intentionally build deliberately diverse teams. Actively seek out and include people with different backgrounds, experiences, personality styles, and ways of thinking. Diverse teams have the inherent tension and different perspectives needed to generate synergistic solutions. Homogeneous teams are comfortable, but often less creative.
Diversity creates the potential for synergy, the raw ingredients.
Yes. Then, use structured collaboration techniques. Facilitate meetings and problem-solving sessions using techniques that encourage open sharing, suspend judgment during brainstorming, and ensure that quieter voices and different perspectives are actively solicited and heard. Create the right process.
Making sure every piece of the puzzle is actually on the table, not just the loudest voices.
Exactly. And, just like at the individual level, move beyond compromise is the primary goal. Explicitly aim for synergistic outcomes in team discussions. Create a high-trust environment where open, honest dialogue, even disagreement, is seen as a path to breakthrough solutions, not conflict to be avoided or smoothed over superficially. Conflict, handled well, leads to creativity.
The vignette shows a very common organizational challenge: conflict between departments. Always tricky.
It's the classic tension between sales and engineering teams. Sales wants features the customers are asking for, maybe immediately right now. Engineering understands the technical complexity, the timelines, the maintenance issues down the road. They were in a stalemate over the product roadmap. The leader, instead of forcing a compromise, okay, sales gets half their features, engineering gets half their timeline, leaving everyone unhappy, brought them together for a dedicated synergistic meeting.
What was different about this meeting? What made it synergistic?
Well, it wasn't a negotiation. The leader facilitated a session where the sales team deeply explained the customer's world, their pain points, and the why behind the feature request. Really got into the customer's shoes. The engineering team then deeply explained the technical realities, the opportunities different technical approaches could offer, and the why behind their concerns about feasibility or stability.
Deep mutual understanding first, rooted in seeking first to understand, both sides.
Yes. From that shared understanding of the customer needs and the technical landscape, they began to brainstorm together. They weren't defending their original positions anymore. They were creatively exploring how to meet the underlying needs within the real constraints. They co-created a new feature set and phased roadmap that was both technically feasible and delivered unprecedented value to customers, something neither team had envisioned independently beforehand. That's the power of true synergy.
Taking the time to deeply understand each other really unleashes that creativity. Fantastic. Finally, characteristic 8, the discipline of self-renewal. Sharpening the saw.
Yes. Covey calls this the habit that literally makes all the other habits possible. It's the discipline of consistently investing in your most important asset, yourself, across the 4 dimensions we touched on earlier: physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual. It's about maintaining your capacity. For individuals, a powerful practice is to schedule a daily private victory. Covey suggests dedicating ideally an hour each day, perhaps broken up, to these 4 areas. Maybe 30 minutes for physical exercise, 15 minutes for mental renewal, reading, journaling, and 15 minutes for spiritual renewal, meditation, prayer, reflection, adapted to fit you.
Carving out non-negotiable time for self-care and growth every day, making it a priority.
Yes. These aren't optional luxuries. They are foundational for sustaining your energy, clarity, and resilience over the long haul. Integrate social-emotional renewal throughout your day as well. This dimension of renewal isn't always about scheduled time slots. It's woven into your interactions by practicing empathy, seeking synergistic collaboration, maintaining healthy relationships, and engaging in service to others. Meaningful connection and contribution are vital sources of energy.
So it's both dedicated time and integrating it into your daily interactions and relationships. How do leaders support self-renewal in a team?
Leaders must first and foremost protect time for renewal. This means actively working to prevent chronic overwork and burnout. Enforce vacation policies, encourage people to take breaks, help manage workloads realistically, and discourage non-essential communication outside of work hours. You can't expect people to be creative and engaged if they're constantly running on empty.
Treating people's energy as a finite, valuable resource that needs replenishing.
Exactly. Also, offer wellness resources. Provide access to resources that support physical health, like gym access or wellness programs, mental health, counseling services, stress management workshops, and personal development. Show that the organization genuinely invests in the whole person.
Backing up the value with tangible support and resources.
Yes. And critically, model and encourage renewal. Leaders need to visibly take their own vacations, talk about their hobbies, leave on time for family commitments, mention books they're reading, or talk about how they manage stress. This sends a powerful cultural signal that it's not only acceptable, but expected for team members to prioritize their own well-being and renewal. It normalizes it.
It makes it safe for others to do the same without feeling guilty or like they're slacking off. The vignette for self-renewal feels very timely, very relevant.
It involves a consulting team nearing the end of a grueling project. They were exhausted, stressed, and morale was low. Sound familiar? The partner leading the team saw the signs of impending burnout. He knew they needed to finish strong, but also that pushing them harder would likely be counterproductive at that point.
So what was his intervention? What did he do?
He didn't just tell them to hang in there or offer pizza. He mandated no weekend work for the final month of the project. Full stop. And taking inspiration from Covey's ideas, he instituted a mandatory recharge hour each afternoon from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., where no meetings, emails, or client calls were allowed unless it was an absolute emergency.
Giving them permission to pause midday, right when energy often dips.
The team was resistant at first, feeling they couldn't possibly spare the time, but they were instructed to use that hour for a walk, meditation, quiet work, grabbing a coffee, whatever genuinely recharged them. The result was remarkable. That mandated hour of separation, combined with protected weekends, drastically reduced stress, improved focus during the actual work periods, and they finished the project on time and with a higher quality than expected. Renewal wasn't a drain on productivity, it was essential for productivity, a key investment.
Wow. These 8 characteristics, brought to life with those individual steps, team applications, and vignettes, provide a really comprehensive playbook for embodying principle-centered leadership. Much clearer now.
They move the concepts from abstract ideas to tangible, actionable behaviors you can actually practice.
And the source takes it further, showing this isn't just a personal development framework, it applies at every level of an organization and drives real-world success. It scales.
Absolutely. We can see these principles operating in leaders and companies that achieve sustainable results. Take, for example, Indra Nooyi's time as CEO of PepsiCo.
Right, she spearheaded performance with purpose. What was that about again?
This was a powerful, large-scale demonstration of being service-oriented and beginning with the end in mind. When she took the helm, she didn't just focus on traditional metrics like sales and profit. Her end in mind for PepsiCo was much broader, not just selling more sugary drinks and salty snacks, but contributing positively to the health of consumers, the environment, and their own employees. This deep sense of purpose was her strategic true north.
So service wasn't just a side project or CSR initiative, it was built right into the core strategy.
Precisely. This translated into 3 pillars. Human sustainability, shifting the product portfolio towards healthier options, better for you, good for you. Environmental sustainability, reducing their footprint, conserving water, improving packaging. And talent sustainability, investing in employee health, well-being, and development. This visionary, purpose-driven approach was deeply rooted in principles.
And the results? Was it just good PR or did it work?
It wasn't just altruistic, it was incredibly strategic. It aligned PepsiCo with growing global trends, effectively future-proofing the company against changing consumer demands and environmental concerns. It inspired innovation across the organization, strengthened the brand image, and rallied employees around a meaningful cause. And importantly, it proved that this deep commitment to purpose could drive strong, long-term financial performance and shareholder value. It was good business.
Connecting principle directly to profit and sustainability. Very powerful. Another compelling case is Doug Conant's turnaround at Campbell Soup.
Oh yeah, this is a textbook inside-out leadership story. When Conant took over, Campbell Soup was in deep trouble, a notoriously toxic internal culture, rock-bottom morale, and poor business performance. A real mess. His core belief was crystal clear from day one. To win in the marketplace, you must first win in the workplace.
Fixing the culture was the absolute prerequisite for business success.
Absolutely. His approach was fundamentally built on inspiring trust and believing in other people. He knew he couldn't turn the business around without first rebuilding the foundation of trust and respect with his employees. He had to heal the workplace first.
How did he go about that? What were the actions?
Well, he made inspiring trust the #1 expectation in the new leadership model he introduced. He also took swift action to remove leaders who were unwilling or unable to operate from this principle. Actions speak louder than words. And then, there's his most famous act. He committed to writing handwritten thank you notes to employees at all levels across the company, personally.
The source mentions he wrote over 30,000 notes over his tenure. That's not a corporate initiative you delegate. That's a personal, disciplined manifestation of genuinely believing in and appreciating your people. It's incredible.
It's an extraordinary example of living the principle of believing in other people, and also that discipline of self-renewal, consistently putting in the effort, making the time. He also prioritized measuring employee engagement, using tools like the Gallup Q12 survey, making that soft cultural metric a hard business priority. He measured what mattered.
And the results were undeniable, right? It worked.
The culture transformation was astounding. Campbell Soup went from having one of the worst employee engagement scores in the Fortune 500 to one of the very best, achieving a remarkable 17.1 ratio of engaged to actively disengaged employees. Huge swing. This highly engaged, trusting workforce became the engine that drove the business turnaround, leading to revitalized brands, improved operations, and top-tier shareholder returns. It's powerful proof that principles aren't soft. They're the engine of hard results.
Wow. The source also looks at Amazon's leadership principles as a modern organizational example. Even if it's not explicitly branded as Covey, it shows similar thinking.
Yeah, Amazon provides a fascinating example of a company that explicitly defines and operates by a set of core principles. While the language and perhaps the cultural intensity are distinct from Covey, the underlying logic of using principles as compass to guide decentralized decision-making is very similar to Covey's framework.
How do their principles stack up against Covey's characteristics? Where are the parallels?
You see some very clear parallels. Learn and be curious is obviously a direct match for continually learning. Customer obsession is a powerful, externally focused application of being service-oriented, centering the entire company around serving the customer's needs above all else. Interestingly, Amazon later added, strive to be Earth's best employer, which brings in that internal service dimension, recognizing the need to serve employees well, too, which is crucial.
What about radiating positive energy? Is that in there?
You could argue principles like think big, encouraging bold goals and challenging conventional thinking serve to inspire and create positive, forward-moving energy within the organization, countering skepticism about ambitious ideas. And hire and develop the best is a demanding, performance-oriented expression of believing in other people, with that crucial emphasis on active development and coaching, believing they can reach that high bar.
Leading a balanced life. How does Amazon's culture fit there?
Yeah, this is where you see some interesting tension. Maybe principles like strive to be Earth's best employer, alongside others like frugality and deliver results, coexist in Amazon's culture. The company's reputation for intensity suggests that achieving balance in the Covey sense of moderation across all life dimensions can be challenging within that demanding environment. It highlights that while principles are essential, the specific way they are interpreted and prioritized within a culture really matters.
How does invent and simplify relate to seeing life as an adventure?
Oh, that principle is pure adventure. It embodies the spirit of exploration, embracing risk, and stepping into the unknown, and the commitment stated in their explanation. We accept that we may be misunderstood for long periods of time, perfectly reflects the courage and internal security needed to chart new territory and weather external skepticism when you're doing something truly new. And have backbone, disagree, and commit is a really powerful mechanism for achieving synergy. It explicitly values diverse opinions and encourages vigorous debate, have backbone, disagree. But once a decision is made, everyone commits, fully commit. This process ensures different perspectives are surfaced and wrestled with, leading to better decisions than groupthink while still enabling unified, principle-guided action.
And self-renewal. Is that covered?
Well, learn and be curious definitely covers the mental aspect of self-renewal. However, Covey's framework is arguably more holistic, explicitly including physical, social, emotional, and spiritual renewal as equally essential. These aren't as overtly detailed in Amazon's stated principles, though individual teams and leaders may certainly emphasize them in practice.
So, while maybe not a perfect one-to-one replica of Covey's model, Amazon demonstrates how defining a clear set of principles and embedding them deeply in the culture provides a powerful framework for guiding behavior, empowering people at scale, and driving innovation. It validates the core idea of principle-based effectiveness in a very modern context.
It really shows that the concepts are adaptable and highly applicable in today's fast-paced, high-performing environments.
Okay, this all culminates in Covey's unified framework, showing how these principles don't just operate in isolation, but flow outward in a ripple effect, building success level by level from the individual out.
Yes, he synthesizes it into 4 interconnected levels of application. And the key is, success at each level is a prerequisite for success at the levels above it. You can't skip levels.
Tell us about those levels. What's the first one?
It starts, as always, with Covey at the personal level. This is your relationship with yourself. The goal at this level, built through the private victory habits and developing those 4 inner dimensions we talked about, security, guidance, wisdom, power, is to become trustworthy. It's all about your character and your competence. Are you a person of integrity? Are you capable? Can you be relied upon?
And if you are personally trustworthy, that enables the next level, the interpersonal level.
Correct. This is your relationship with others. Building on your personal trustworthiness, the goal here is to create trust in your interactions and relationships. Trust isn't given, it's earned through consistently being trustworthy.
And with trust established, you can move effectively to the managerial level.
Right. This is about getting things done with and through others. When there is high trust between individuals and within a team, you can move to genuine empowerment. You can delegate authority, unleash potential, and foster initiative because the foundation of trust supports it. People feel safe.
Which then allows you to lead the whole organization effectively. The final level, organizational level.
This final level is about organizing systems, structure, and strategy for collective success. with empowered individuals and trusting relationships as the foundation. The goal here is alignment, ensuring that the entire organization, its systems, its culture, its strategy is aligned with its mission, vision, and goals, with everyone working together effectively towards that true north.
You can really see how that causal chain is absolutely essential if the foundation is cracked at the personal level.
It cascades upwards. If a leader is not personally trustworthy, they simply cannot build authentic interpersonal trust. Without trust, any attempt to empower others will likely fail. It'll be seen as manipulation, maybe abdication of responsibility, or just won't be effective because people don't feel safe or supported enough to step up. And without genuinely empowered individuals and trusting teams, achieving true organizational alignment and executing strategy effectively becomes incredibly difficult, leading to chronic internal friction, wasted energy, and poor results.
It feels like so many common organizational problems. Things like bureaucracy, lack of innovation, infighting, internal politics can often be traced back to a breakdown somewhere in those lower levels, often starting with a lack of personal trustworthiness at the top, or maybe spread throughout the organization.
It's the inside-out philosophy playing out on a grand scale. The health of the organization ultimately reflects the health of the individuals and relationships within it. And you can see how the 8 characteristics we discussed earlier manifest differently but consistently at each of these 4 levels.
Let's pick a couple from the framework table just to illustrate that progression. How does being service-oriented show up across the 4 levels?
Okay, good one. At the personal level, it's about defining your personal mission and purpose around contribution, seeing your life as having a mission to serve others or a cause. It's an internal drive. At the interpersonal level, it's about focusing on serving the needs of others in your relationships, truly seeking to help and contribute to their well-being and success. At the managerial level, it's about the leader seeing their primary role as serving the team, removing obstacles, providing resources, coaching and developing them so they can succeed. Servant leadership. And finally, at the organizational level, it's about the entire organization having a transcendent purpose focused on serving the needs of its stakeholders, customers, employees, the community, maybe even the planet.
It moves beautifully from inner motive to outward behavior with others to a leadership style and ultimately to the organization's identity and reason for being. Okay, how about believing in other people? How does that ripple out?
Right. Personally, it starts with believing in your own potential and inherent worth. You see potential in yourself first. Interpersonally, it's about genuinely seeing and affirming the potential and worth of the individuals you interact with, looking past their current performance or flaws. Managerially, it's demonstrated through empowering delegation, trusting them with real responsibility, coaching them towards growth, and supporting your team members to reach their potential even if they stumble. And organizationally, it's reflected in talent management systems, training programs, promotion processes, and cultural norms that fundamentally assume people are capable, want to contribute, and are worthy of investment and development.
That progression really locks in how integrated this framework is. It truly starts with you and ripples outwards, transforming relationships, teams, and ultimately the entire organization. It all connects.
It's a truly unified view of effectiveness from the inside out.
So, as we bring this deep dive to a close, the core message of principle-centered leadership seems crystal clear. Lasting, sustainable effectiveness, both personal and organizational, isn't achieved through superficial techniques or outside-in manipulations. That stuff just doesn't last.
No, it's built from the inside out, anchored in timeless, universal principles. It's Covey's powerful antidote to the quick-fix culture we often find ourselves in.
And the benefits are profound. Cultivating that stable inner core based on principles leads to personal trustworthiness, which builds interpersonal trust, enables managerial empowerment, and ultimately results in organizational alignment and sustainable success. It's a powerful chain reaction.
But always remember the law of the farm. This isn't a magic bullet or an overnight fix. It requires patience, diligence, and consistent effort. It's a lifelong journey of cultivation, not a destination you arrive at and then you're done.
And Covey offers a really powerful thought about where this journey actually begins. It's not with a massive corporate strategy retreat or some complex 10-step plan.
No. He argues it begins with a deceptively simple, almost humble, personal act.
What is that first act? Where do you start?
making and keeping a small promise to yourself. It could be as simple as promising to wake up 15 minutes earlier tomorrow, or to read for 10 minutes tonight, or to go for that short walk at lunch. The act itself is less important than the discipline of making a commitment to yourself and following through. That is the very first step in building the integrity and character from which all effective leadership, all sustainable growth, and all true influence ultimately flows. It's planting that first seed in your own garden. Something for you to think about as you leave this deep dive and step back into your day. Where can you make and keep a small promise to yourself today?
In the quiet of the morning, before the day takes hold, a silent whisper stirs a story, waiting to unfold. You've carried burdens, doubts like shadows, heavy on your mind, but a strength you've always harbored now is rising to define. No more hiding in the corners, no more playing small. There's a purpose deeply calling. Hear it, stand up tall. Feel the tremor deep inside your soul. A sleeping giant ready to take control. Awaken vision, let your spirit rise and ignite. Be the beacon, lead them forward into the light. The path ahead may twist and turn with challenges unseen, but every step you take now shows the leader you have been. For inspiration lives within you, a compass strong and true, to guide not just your own direction, but to light the way for a few. No more hiding in the corners, no more playing small. There's a purpose deeply calling. Hear it, stand up tall. Feel the tremor deep inside your soul. A sleeping giant ready to take control. Awaken vision, let your spirit rise and ignite. Be the beacon, lead them forward into the light. It's not about the crown you wear or titles you acquire. It's the heart you bring to service, setting every soul on fire. With empathy and courage, a vision clear and bright, you don't just walk the journey, you illuminate the night. Feel the tremor deep inside your soul. A sleeping giant ready to take control. Awaken vision, let your spirit rise and ignite. Ignite the beacon, lead them forward into the light, into the light. The leader in you rising, guiding them forward into the light.